My name is Natasha and I am 40.
Hi, I'm Katie. I am 42.
I'm Kerri. I'm 46 years old.
I'm Lizzie. I'm 38.
Jane Regan King, 55 years old.
Welcome back to Interwovxn's fourth season, featuring conversations centered on life's essentials and on celebrating and supporting women in middle life. We are thrilled this season to exchange support with Melnick & Melnick SC. Melnick & Melnick SC is a law firm of women dedicated to supporting small business owners. They manage legal issues with collaborative solutions, cost-effective strategies, and up-to-date communications. Melnick & Melnick SC values women and entrepreneurs so much that in 2017, they started She Stands Tall, a community of women who learn from and inspire each other. Visit melnickmelnick.com and shestandstallmke.com for more information and to learn about future events. In today's episode, Katie and Kerri talk about how they met, life as an artist, creative evolution, perceptions of aging versus actually aging, finding a place of surrender, pandemic and post-pandemic experiences, and the freedom of letting go. A note to our listeners, this episode contains a few well-placed expletives. A huge thank you to this season's featured musician, Gina Barrington. Remember to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know about new episodes, and visit our website to join the Interwoven community, receive newsletters and event information, access all of our resources, and to connect with us on social. Find us at interwoven.com. That's interwovxn.com.
Hi, I'm Katie. I am 42. I live in New York City. I'm a film and commercial editor and filmmaker. I have a wonderful husband and an 11-year-old dog named Barnaby.
I'm Kerri, and I'm 46 years old. I currently am in Missoula, Montana. Struggling a little with titles in my life right now in this moment. Tidally into I'm an artist. I'm just going to leave it at that for now.
Hi, Kerri.
Hi, Katie did.
So the background is that Kerri, aka Nalu, and I met at an arts camp for underserved youth that is called Caldera in Portland, Oregon. And the camp is in Central Oregon. And we met there as art instructors. When was that?
2007 is when
something around there. 07, 08. So that's how long I've known you. And I met you as Nalu, which is your camp name. And you met me as
Katie did. And people come from all over the state to participate in the program. And it's everyone at camp, the youth and adults and the admin and every person involved in the community comes up with a camp name. And it's a way to sort of recreate yourself and have some anonymity or to like recreate your story as you come together in this community. So I worked out there for like 7 years.
You were like a legend there. And I was like really intimidated when I first met you. Because first of all, the camp environment, it made me uncomfortable, to be honest. Like I was not a camp kid growing up. I was not like a group song participator. I felt usually like pretty intimidated there. You're frolicking through the camp like in wigs and like everyone knows you and you're talking to everybody. And I like had heard of you in multiple sessions before you and I actually worked together. And then we not only worked together, but we lived together in our camp housing, which was really, really fun. And that's when I really got to know you. We had a blast.
That environment was like so full on, like a 24/7 immersive, every range of emotion in an hour.
All day, every day.
But yeah, so we got to come home in our little A-frame and process and laugh and
cry sometimes.
Yeah. So that was like a really rich and intimate way to get to know each other.
Yeah, it was. And I feel like it's so appropriate for the kind of friendship I think that we have with each other, because one of the reasons I wanted to ask you to do this is because I feel like you, first of all, are like a friendship that I just am eternally grateful to have in my life. I think you're an incredibly special person. As much as we laugh and joke and everything else, you are somebody who just always, I feel like you're always on a higher vibration, always have such amazing insight and thoughtfulness in what you do and how you do it and what you think about. And I want as much of that to like rub off on me as possible. It all like fits back because Caldera is like such a place where it requires your full presence. You have to be just completely in it all the time. And I feel like like so few places else in life like really require that. You are my present friend.
Thanks so much for those generous words. Really special to hear and to just like take that in, and also that's such a mutual feeling. I don't know. I feel like that's maybe me reflecting you back. And going back to Caldera, that's like a special place to meet. I feel like so much of the community and the experience at Caldera is the margins of life. There's so much depth and realness and vulnerability. While we maybe put costumes on and be silly, it's like we get to be all of ourselves in that place. It's also like an arts and environmental ecology program. The first year out there, I was actually like challenge course facilitator, team building, group processing stuff, and just like such richness of sharing. So a really intimate space to get to know each other. I also, when I met you, you were one of those people in my life that I felt like I wanted to be your friend. I just felt really like magnetized to you. I feel like in my life, I want to be funnier.
We should also mention probably too that like we lived in Portland at the same time for many years, but now we live very far apart from each other. It's fine. Like I never feel like there's like that readjustment or like re-entry period into the relationship. It's always just like, yep, great. We're back at it. And I love that.
I wanted to share too that I got to work with you and live with you. And another way that I got to know you on another level was really when I first learned about some of the work that you were doing. I saw a documentary that you made called Sissy Boy. It was going on tour with a bunch of drag queens and really like living in their world and really like doing a sort of deep dive on their stories and identities and challenges and community and subculture. It just moved me so much. Clearly, like there was a relationship that you had with these people that they brought you in so closely to be so honest with you. And so seeing that work really introduced me to a whole nother level of you, and that you are so courageous to like go to the margins of cultures and communities and to ask questions and be curious. You become a sort of like conduit to open more channels in my life in those conversations.
That's such a compliment. So as a filmmaker, I'm definitely really curious to kind of explore and like see how different people navigate life. With Sissy Boy, so the background for the listener is just that Sissy Boy was a group of drag queen performance artists in Portland, Oregon. They were together for a number of years and performed at bars and clubs around town, and people kind of knew who they were, and they were very like shock performance drag in a time too where like they were sort of a little bit ahead of their time. You know, it was just this sort of like gender expression exploration. Like they all had beards and they had dresses, and it was like they were sort of like challenging like what even like the concept of drag was at the time, and but also like working through stuff. They would write and perform all of their own like skits and song parodies and things too. So they weren't just lip syncing to, you know, well-known songs. They were actually writing social commentary and politically leaning content and presenting it in this really subversive way. And the presentation of them was super fascinating to me. And then once I got to go behind the curtain a little bit and like get inside their world, then it was just really interesting.
I feel like everything you touch is just exquisite and just so thoughtful and rich. Everything you touch is gold. Being a part of anything with you is such a gift.
I think it really comes back to this theme of like what is essential. Even at a time where I feel like we have like so many distractions, and I definitely am distracted. I look at TikTok and I am on my phone all the time, and all of those things are definitely happening. At the same time, the things that I think about on a daily basis that are important to me, my relationship with my parents and my family, and the friendships that I really care about, the ability and the drive to tell stories, to put something meaningful into the world. Those are all the things that have really, over the last couple of years, really kind of like bubbled up to the surface. They were always important and always there, but they feel now more important than before. Like I've never spent so much time thinking about certain things in those categories, and it's sort of nice. It sort of like helps flush away all the little stuff that you like don't need to sweat as much, even though I sweat a lot of the small stuff. Maybe that's being in this decade in life.
Something you just said about the meaningful relationships in your life, that's something I was thinking a lot about as well. What is essential? And when I think of all these different stories or different pieces It's like these meaningful relationships and connections and a sense of belonging and knowing where we come from, whether it's our family or our experience, our stories, or our ancestors, informs the way we show up and our sense of self. I've been thinking a lot about belonging and becoming. That like meaningful relationships and connection for me is so tied to the natural world and being in relationship with the natural systems. Something I thought about of what's essential. I've moved around quite a bit. An essential thing to me is one, being within a day's drive of the ocean. That is like such a life source for me, for the planet. And then also like being able to see the moon and the stars where I sleep is always really important to me. I need to be connected to like a bigger sense of things, the impermanence and the interconnectedness of it all.
To know you is to feel that connectedness to nature and to the natural world in you. It's really such an inherent part of you. You really purposefully spend a lot of time in the outdoors. And as somebody who like has lived in New York for the last 7 years, I'm envious of your proximity to the outdoors and to the natural world. You sent me a picture yesterday of the hills that you were hiking through when we were talking. And I was like, oh God.
A word that keeps coming up is nourishment. So I've been like sort of reflecting on like, what does that mean? What does that look like? Like, where do you get your nourishment?
I get my nourishment from telling meaningful stories through film. The work I do nourishes me, not always, not every day, but I get to be creative every day and solve problems and engage in that process. I have been doing it for almost 20 years and I love it so much. So that does nourish me. Having conversations like this, I mean, having just meaningful conversations with people that I love and care about, that's a huge one. Spending time with my husband, which we do, we spend a lot of time together. I think we really like nourish each other in different ways. We have a lot of fun together and we also have faced a lot of really difficult stuff together. And time alone nourishes me. For my job, have to spend a lot of time with clients in my edit bay. While I love it and it can be really fun, it does zap me. Having time alone like also nourishes me. And anything on Bravo.
Well, one of the things I'll say that I think we share and have shared so much together is good food. Like food as medicine and as sharing a meal together. That's like such a connective, intimate thing to me, to share a meal with people, regardless of what it is we're eating. There's just a sort of nourishment that is metaphoric in eating and being in good company. I'm very nourished by having my hands connected to the earth and like growing food. Planting seeds and watching food grow is magic over and over and over and over. And working with different conditions and having to be flexible and fluid with conditions and growing food, I feel like has been such an amazing teacher for me. Being in my body, movement and breath and alignment and attunement and that whole system, that nourishes me on such a deep level. And then sharing that magic with others, yeah, is really special. And also like learning about all the abundance of nourishment in the natural world.
What is something you want to let go of and call in? What have you noticed has changed in yourself over time?
A friend and I were on a long walk one day and we were asking each other the question of what's one thing you've done in your life that you feel good about? What's the most meaningful thing you feel like you've done with your life so far? Which is along the lines of what are your gifts or what are you good at? Yeah, I always really struggle with having an answer to that question. This was years ago, but it's recently just kind of come back into mind. And I feel that what came up for me was making a few people feel really loved. Feels like maybe the best thing I've offered in my time.
That's kind of where my mind went too. I'm just like, well, I feel like I'm a good daughter and I'm a good wife and I'm a good friend. And I feel like those things often maybe are undervalued or like don't get talked about a lot. It's the most important thing I feel like we can do. Show up for people in whatever capacity that is, whatever form that takes.
Hey everybody, we're going to take just a quick break from this interwoven discussion to tell you about Blossom Candle Co., a Milwaukee-based women-owned business. Blossom is a lifestyle brand that takes pride in being eco-friendly and uplifting. All of Blossom's products are intentionally created to uplift the mind, body, and spirit, making you feel more positive and empowered. Visit www.blossomcandleco.com to learn more or connect on Instagram. Are you interested in hearing your business advertised on the Interwoven podcast? Contact us at hello@interwoven.com.
It's crazy being this age. Like when I turned 40, it was really kind of like a mind fuck for me. You know, I was born in the 80s. I remember like my parents turning 40 when I was a kid, and it was like over the hill and all these like black decorations and like tombstones and like, oh, you're gonna die now, you know, and it felt like 40 was like such a huge deal. Then getting here myself, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. How did this happen? I should feel like a full-on grown adult that's like got it all figured out, that isn't surprised by life anymore, that can handle everything. It's like, do we ever actually feel like how old we perceive ages to be? I remember being like, oh my God, I'm 40. Okay, that's the cutoff. I am no longer young. Nothing I ever do will be impressive as an accomplishment because I'm old. But I don't feel that way. And so I've been and now I'm 42 now. So I've had 2 years to like marinate in this space. You know, like if someone mams me on the street or something, I'm like, who are you talking to? I feel like I'm 28 still mentally. I feel like the cultural definition of like, oh, she's over 40 has been like a thing, you know? But now that I'm here, I'm just like, hold up. I don't feel different.
I like appreciate hearing that. I feel like I never really have identified with my age, and I kind of feel like I've always intentionally been in community that sort of spans such a spectrum of age, of youth to elders, and I feel like I always want to in my life be a part of community and conversation that has that full range. That I, in many ways, feel we've all lived lifetimes and we're kind of a cumulative age of our experience and wisdom. And that is very separate from the amount of years that we've been in these bodies. To work with a youth is like they're a teacher for me and have so much wisdom to sit with an elder that has like been on a very different journey, have so much as a teacher and so much to learn from, that I feel like when I relate with others in a sense of we are on a sort of all on this level of like we can learn from each other. With age, I feel like it's really humbled me, really learn a lot about acceptance and forgiveness. I don't know that like we ever arrive. My story has definitely not unfolded the way I envisioned at all. There's just a part of like embracing that for whatever is arising. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things of just letting go of, but this phrase has been coming to me a lot lately of like letting go of to let go into. And I feel like when I can let go of it some way I wanted or thought it would be, it sort of like opens me up to allow for whatever is here. So last weekend was my uncle's funeral. There was a phrase that one of his friends said in his eulogy that said, he used the phrase aging, saging, and engaging as a description. I loved that.
I feel like I'm more understanding of things and of people and of their actions and their reasoning than I ever have been before. And a lot of that has been because I have an amazing therapist. I've had amazing therapists in my life, and I feel like therapy is something that is absolutely essential. That would definitely be on my list for many reasons, but it has helped me to sort of really broaden my ability to sort of see things from other people's perspective. I don't have to agree with them. And so I think that that's really come with age. I can't control other people. I can't force other people to do things that I think they should do or whatever for themselves, but it really helps to understand or try to understand like where they're coming from. And my mom and I have this saying that we started saying a few years ago, and it's hard to be a person. You know, stuff gets complicated. It's hard to be a person.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I love hearing you talk about like just the sort of more expansive perspective taking. That's calling to mind for me of just like curiosity is an essential to me. I feel like maybe in some of my younger and more radical years of like just like such strong values, principles, and a little bit of maybe more righteousness wasn't really of service to me. To learn from curiosity from people like from different values, different views, in traveling and just meeting with different people of different backgrounds, cultures, stories, to just have curiosity has opened so much. We haven't maybe said this, so it's so like oversimplified, but love and kindness feel really essential.
I think that the pandemic like really opened that conversation up for people too. It kind of had a big effect on me, and I still feel like I'm navigating like a new normal of life, and it was really hard to be in New York City during the pandemic. It was very difficult and very scary, and it felt really life altering. And even now we're sort of back to normal or whatever. It did just like help people look around and identify like, what do we need joy. We need to feel safe. We need to be around the people we love. I didn't see my parents for 18 months because I was terrified of bringing my New York germs to the Midwest and getting either of them sick. I was like, I never want to be in that position ever again.
During the pandemic, I feel like for me, I was in like a bit of a sanctuary during the like I was living in rural Western Massachusetts, was growing a ton of food and had acres of conservation land around me, amazing neighbors that we were like sharing all our systems. And I think there was a big part of me that actually felt uncomfortable with having such a good situation.
Primo pandemic spot.
Yeah, and like I felt the suffering of the world and the hardship, and I felt like a need to hide my joy for little joys. Obviously, I wasn't feeling joy about the state of the world and the situation, but I felt dancing around in my house like with the love of my life. I felt like I needed to be really private about the joy that I had, and I think that's like one of my biggest learnings from those like couple years. There's room for all of it, that we don't need to just like reach out when things are hard, support and hold each other up through the hardships, but like to actually really share the joy. The full range of human emotion and experience makes me feel alive. To be willing to embrace some of the more uncomfortable emotions and some of the more joyful and celebratory, and to like let them all be there together.
That's so brave. I can appreciate, and I think there's learning and nourishment in all of the emotions for sure. And I'm always kind of the opinion of like, life will happen at you. My granny always had this expression, don't borrow trouble, meaning basically like, don't live in this state of, worrying about the worst case scenario or what's going to happen or whatever. And I like definitely live in that state very often. I always think like, don't borrow trouble. At the same time, life happens. Like life is hard. And I feel like it only gets harder. So it makes the times and the days where everything's kind of okay, like that much more precious. I find myself trying to actively practice gratitude at the times when everything's okay. Everyone's okay today. Things are good. I'm grateful for what I've got. My husband and I always say like, God, we're like the luckiest people in the world. Like we're so lucky. And I think it's just like the older I get, the more I'm just like grateful for the times when there isn't an emergency, like nobody's sick, everybody's okay. So to hear you say that like feeling like the full range of emotions like makes you feel alive, I'm just like, wow, that's really brave, because I'm a little bit like, I'm good. I'm all emotioned out.
I mean, I think that it helps me see the impermanence of all of those states, which it's easy to sink into those first couple of years of the pandemic. I feel like it's actually like in this time now that's been way harder for me. And I have had that. I just kind of feel like the effects of the pandemic have looked so different for everybody. And I'm feeling a lot of the waves of the pandemic now. Have been displaced from my home, and like a lot of shifting in community and relationships and grief and loss and fragility. So it's all really impermanent and just like never really know what someone else is holding. I feel.
It's hard to be a person.
But it's such a gift to be a person. I kind of feel like when the pandemic started, I felt like, oh, I'm made for this. I kind of felt like, here's my time to like do the thing. The shit hit the fan like in the last year. I feel like everything has kind of, it's like held it together so well. And then, yeah, it's like this last year has been one of the hardest years of my life. And I don't know how much of that like is a result of the pandemic-y stuff or not, but I think a lot of it's pretty tied in there. It's part of that full range of human experience.
There is like a little bit of a like, oh, I got way less fucks now that I'm over 40, which feels awesome. I do like that part of this stage. Is
I kind of feel like when you give less fucks or like letting go of those things, there's like more freedom. There's more fun.
Well, there's just more space for the shit that matters. I have people please, the disease to please, like to the nth degree. If I could take a pill for it, I probably would. And my life would be a lot easier. I do feel that diminishing a little bit at this stage. And it is nice. Also, like everyone's so wrapped up in their own stuff all the time. Like no one's thinking about your shit that much. Like it doesn't matter. You said something weird at work to somebody, they've already forgotten about it. Yeah.
That's a bumper sticker waiting to happen. A fun thing to share too. So my grandmother just a week and a half ago turned 99, and she is like having the time of her life. Since I was very little, I used to always ask her, if you could be any age again, Grandma, what age would you want to be? And she always answered, right now. Like her whole life, that's been the answer. And it's still exactly the same. I want to live that.
Yeah.
When I was like in my 20s, I met this person here who was probably like in his 70s at the time, but he was in a book club that was all ages, so like middle school through 80s, and they were reading classics.
Cute.
Like, think about those conversations.
Nalu, I love this. We need to do this every day. Can we do this every day?
Yes.
And we should record it.
Yes. And when we're like 99 years old, we'll be so happy we
and
have
we'll play it
recordings.
back.
Let's start that project.
Let's do it. Hold on. Did we just make art together? I think we did. Well, I love you, and thank you for doing this and going on this adventure today. And this is really fun.
I love you. Thank you.
So we went on a little walk today.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, let's talk soon.
We will. Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks for joining us today. We invite you to give us a star review and to hit subscribe for a new empowering conversation each week. Visit our website where you'll find our newsletter, event dates, and other amazing resources. Visit interwoven.com, that's interwovxn.com, to sign up today. This show's copyright is summer of 2023. We want to thank Melnick and Melnick for their support this season. Our Interwoven producers are Teresa Kopak, Rebecca Jankowski, and Jen Gilmore. All original music was created and performed by Gina Barrington.